football with the beat writer from the Oklahoman. Um, yeah, I haven't talked to Scott. I don't even think I saw him in the. I may have seen him at some point in the press box at the bowl game. I'm not sure. I was up there for the pregame, then went down for the game itself. But how's your new year going, Scott?
It's going all right. It's
That's good.
like you said, like you were describing. It's still a crazy time. So Zoom calls and all those things for us. So but it's going all right.
And like I said, we didn't have John Holcomb with us at the bowl game because his dad
Right.
passed away, and so I kind of did color from the field, which I thought went okay for about 3 quarters, and I hit a wall going into the fourth quarter, and I think Dave had to pretty much carry the broadcast. But then we also had another thing going on, and I'm anxious to find out what was going on the other end, because I can tell you what was going on with me on the Tylan Wallace situation. Um, Tylan came out for the start of the second half. By the way, Scott Wright, again, Oklahoman beat writer from the Oklahoman for Oklahoma State Cowboy football. All right, they come out for the second half, and I had no clue. We weren't told about this in advance, and we had our regular meetings with Casey Dunn, and Dave had done his interview with Mike Gundy for the pregame. And by the way, I was up there, like I said early on, in the was that a weird press box?
It was a little bit weird. It was very broken up and separated, and tough to know who was around you and who was where and finding anybody. So yeah, it was an odd press box, that's for sure.
It was. Anyway, okay. Cowboys come out for the second half, and Tylan Wallace starts making his way down the sidelines, hugging guys, teammates, coaches, Gary Calcagno, Rob Glass. Tylan comes up to me, hugs me, and he kind of whispers in my ear, goes, "Thanks, Rob. Appreciate everything you did." And I'm like, "Yeah, Tylan, great. Where's your helmet? The offense is going out there. Where are you? And he said, "Yeah, I guess I don't think I'm gonna play much the second half." And I'm like, "Okay." So I did a little deal. I said, "Dave, it looks like Tylan Wallace is, he's this is gonna that he's not gonna play much in the second half or at all, and he's cheering his teammates on, but he's on the sideline." Okay. I didn't think to go to Scott Parker, the trainer, like I normally would and say, "What's going on here?" Because I knew Tylan was fine. And so I said, this, I even said, I think, I'm guessing here because I didn't ask, but I think this must be a situation where the coaching staff kind of said, "Look, if we're going to base it on what's going on, but if we've got a lead, if we're doing okay, and you've played, we're not gonna subject you." And then after what we saw in the first half with De'Aaron King, and I think there was another one of the Miami players went out with an injury. I could see it, but I can't go up to Mike Gundy or one of the coaches and say, "Hey, forget this play. Tell me what's up with Tylan." They're going to kick me to the curb. And so that's all we said. Well, the next thing I know, Dave Hunziker's in my ear during a commercial break saying, social media is going ballistic. They're either mad at Tylan for not playing the second half, or they're saying Gundy's lost control of his team, and players are now deciding when and if they'll play. And you got to fix this out. And he goes, "I believe ESPN reported Tylan took himself out of the game."
Right.
Okay. Is that what you had heard?
I had heard both, and that's why it was so difficult in my seat, because it was the biggest thing going for a good chunk of the game. And so I'm trying to gather as much information And like you said, it's the middle of the game. There's no calling sources in the middle of the game. It doesn't work that way. So I'm trying to
go
it's
ahead.
the best I can.
So
to figure
at
out
that
what's going
point,
on.
I am on the sidelines. I do have people I can talk to, although it's not typical to do it in the middle of the game. And Dave he's the captain. He goes, "You got to figure this out." Literally told me, "Figure this out so we can get the right information out there." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not going to go up to a coach." And I didn't think it was a trainer or doctor situation, because those guys I do talk to during the game. I can go up to, namely Scott Parker, but John Stem, and in a case of emergency, I might go up to Val Jean, Doc Ivan, or Doc Pascal. And but I said, Tylen's not doing anything. So I go over to Tylen, and I had joked with him earlier. I'd said, "Hey, if there's an onside kick, you gonna go?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, I'll go out for an onside kick." I said, "Okay," because he did that when he was hurt at K-State. Yeah. So I go back to Tylen this time, and I said, "Tylen," because I don't look at my phone during a game. If I did, Scott, I wouldn't get anything done. And I go to Tylen, and I said, "Tylen, apparently there's a lot of stuff going on here. How did this come about?" And he said, "Oh, we talked about it during preparation for the bowl game with the coaches, that if things were where we thought they would be, or whatever, that they really had only planned on me playing the first half." And I said, "So this was your decision?" He goes, "Well, everybody agreed to it. The coaches, all of us, but it was," he goes, "it was Coach Gundy and Coach Dunn that brought it up." And I said, "Okay, all right, cool." So then we came back, and that's what we reported. And at first, Dave goes, "You better go over to that ESPN girl and straighten her out." I'm like, And then we both talked about it in the next break. He goes, "Nah, just forget the ESPN people. I mean, it's not worth it." And I said, "Okay, I'm because I get all revved up, when." "Yeah, go tell that ESPN girl how to be a reporter. Teach her to So anyway, but Tylen straightened it out, and we felt like we got the right information out there. And then afterwards, talking to Coach Gundy and Coach Dunn, I really think, Scott, between you and me, I think it was more of a Casey Dunn decision. I mean, based on what I got afterwards.
It felt that way to me too, based on the way that he talked about it very strongly in our post game. I know you get a different post game than what we do, but he was very adamant that it was on his shoulders to make this decision, and so I felt that way as well. And it was a strange thing to watch it transpire in the middle of the game like that, but. And you're right, social media was insane for a while there, but yeah, I would agree that it felt like this was something that was a Casey Dunn decision all the way through.
And I think, I mean, between all of us here, listening and talking, I think part of the scenario was not only, okay, Tylen came back, which a lot of guys don't in his position. He played. He's safe. He's hurt. He's not hurt. Let's don't risk him anymore. Let's leave him. And he was actually heading out to meet with his agent after the game. When I talked to him in the parking lot, he said, "Yep, I'm meeting my." He goes, "I'm meeting my marketing group tomorrow," and I'm like, "Okay, you got a marketing group now. That's cool." And
Right.
Kelly Masters, who I know Kelly's his agent, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's cool, man." And he goes, "Yeah, I'm meeting him in South Carolina or somewhere, and then going back to Frisco to train." So, he that's what people don't realize. When those guys go to the bowl game, they're really almost pros already. They're already mapping out what their world's going to be like, the next in preparation for the draft. But I think the other aim that Casey Dunn had was, I need to get Tay out there. I need to throw him the ball. I need to put it in his mind that it might not be a bad thing to come back and be an Oklahoma State Cowboy next year. And
No,
I think he
absolutely.
got that done too. Yeah.
Yeah, he did, and Martin held up his end of it too, making some great catches in that second half, some really key catches. So yeah, I think that was a very important factor in all of this.
That may have been one of the best coaching scenario moves. When you think about, okay, we need to win the bowl game, we need to get this guy out to make some plays, and we need to put it in his head that he could come back and be a flagship guy next year. And we always talk, is a bowl game the end of one season or the beginning of the next? Mm-hmm. With Casey Dunn, Tylan Wallace, and Tay Martin, I think it truly was both.
Yeah, it was. There was the almost the passing of the torch right in the middle of the game there, where you got to celebrate one guy and not necessarily welcome the next because he's been around, but remind him that he's a big part of this team.
As we head into the off season now, and I know they had their first big team meeting yesterday, and then next week is when Rob Glass will start working. He and his staff will start the off season process and all that. There's a bunch of new kids that are in that came in for the start of the semester. A bunch of receivers. Speaking of receivers, with the Green Twins and Bray and John Paul Richardson, and those are all guys that are in. But when you look at what the Cowboys lost in either draft or portal, and you look at what they gained in recruiting and portal and even draft with Harvell Peel pulling back out of the draft, and you start adding up the ledger, how'd you feel they came out?
I thought they came out pretty good. Obviously, the receivers that they lost are really impactful guys in a lot of different ways. So that was going to be a tough one to measure up. Now I think they're bringing in some really talented guys, and then obviously we talked about Tay Martin, and then you saw what Brendan Presley did. It feels like they've got guys that are ready to fill the voids there. But between Wallace, Stoner, and Wolf, you had some really important leaders in that group. So that's going to be tough to replace. I think we might look back at the end of the year and say that Colby Harvell Peel's decision might be one of the biggest ones of all, because that I think is this guy's been 2-year All Big 12 guy coming back and stepping back into his spot, and so that at that safety position, I think is a really big deal. Then you got some additions on the offensive line that I think have a chance to be really helpful, along with a lot of guys that gained experience this year. So overall, I think that they're in pretty good shape. You need some guys to step up at some key positions, but that's the case every year. So it's for what they lost and how they did replace it, I think they're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, and they're really, Devin Harper coming back kind of plugs in where Amon was starting, and Devin was kind of a 1A guy there anyway. Yeah. You mentioned Harvell Peel, and then I thought the biggest crime of the year was Trey Sterling. Not only did he not make first team All Big 12 with the coaches, I thought he should have been somewhere on an All-American list. When you look at his numbers, and I kind of compared them to the safeties that did get All-American, and I'm like, whoa. In fact, I had my wife do a blind test with the stats, and I said, which one of these guys are All-Americans? And she said, well, 2 and 3. Well, I no coincidence and no pun, or not pun, but no coincidence intended. I had Trey Sterling's stat line. It was number 3. So uh, she goes, "Oh yeah, 2 and 3 are the All Americans," and you know, 3 was Sterling, but. Yeah, you know, and then Christian Holmes. I mean, yeah, we saw him get beat on some stuff, but you know, you get a veteran guy back there, and then I'll tell you what, that play Corey Black made in the bowl game makes you think, oh, maybe that kid's ready to grow up and be a big boy out there at the corner position. But you know,
Yeah.
obviously Spencer played well, and then here's my question. Maybe you know. Um, Again, he's not a junior eligible, so he wasn't privy or he wasn't part of the deadline on Monday. But I'm still waiting kind of to see if LD Brown's going to make a statement.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a guy that I was really curious to see what was gonna happen with him. And what is it, March 1st for those guys? I guess.
Yeah, but I mean,
the final.
yeah, but I mean, I assume being in class, you know, I'm going to
Right.
count the deadline being by the end of next week. You better have been going to class, otherwise it's too late
Yeah.
to you know, that's the deadline academically at Oklahoma State to be enrolled for the semester and be
Right.
eligible. So
Exactly. Yeah, I'm curious
anyway,
to see what happens there because running back has a chance to be a really deep and talented group one way or another. I think with him or without him, they're pretty good. But he could be a guy that really makes an impact. I think.
yeah, and I mean, I think Jalen Warren came in from Utah State thinking both Hubbard and you know Brown, both seniors, would be gone. Because I looked at some stuff on Jalen Warren. He's pretty good. I
He's a
mean,
good little
granted,
player.
yeah. So anyway, that's kind of interesting. Uh, and where do you look at after how do you look at Spencer now after the bowl game? He got the MVP award. We all know from what we saw of Shane Illingworth, he deserves to compete. It'll be interesting to see how they navigate quarterback in spring ball. Honestly, I would just say, hey guys, we're gonna have let you both do snaps and compete because you know that makes you better. We're not gonna just you know uh, award anybody the position. Uh, no entitlement here. Just go compete.
Yeah, that's I think the way that they need to handle it is not necessarily some big open quarterback competition, but you want guys thinking that they've got a chance to go win the job and thinking that they need to be working hard. And I think with Spencer, you know, the inconsistencies that he had over the course of the season. He's a guy that I feel bad for. You feel like he's had so much taken away from him, whether it's because of injuries or because of COVID
Offensive
robbing
line,
last
yeah.
spring. Yeah, that he's lost so many opportunities to work and make himself better. That he's not as old as he actually is. It's kind of how it feels, you know. And so you want to see him get the opportunities in spring ball to really develop himself, because if he can be the player that he was in that bowl game, they've got a chance to be a really good offense with him, and you just want to see him be able to develop that consistency where he can go out and do that on a week out basis.
Scott Wright with us, beat writer for Oklahoma State football and some of the other Oklahoma State sports. Who's going to have baseball?
That'll be Jacob Unruh.
Jacob Unruh will have baseball. Okay. I wanted to ask you this to kind of finish it up, and for all the folks out there that think, you know, I'm leading Scott a certain way. Listen to this question. I'm not leading him any way. Uh, at the end of the day, we all know preseason Oklahoma State's hopes and dreams and fans' expectations were this team can win the Big 12. They can go to the Big 12 championship at the very least, play for it, and maybe even if they were able to win it, maybe even get into the playoff. Now, with all the plus and minuses and everything that this team endured at the end of the year, how'd you look at these Cowboys?
I think for what they had to deal with, I think it was a pretty solid performance for them. I think that there were so many things hitting them every week early in the season, especially, and then kind of dragging on into the middle of the season. And you look at all the injuries on the offensive line, and across the board. There was so many negatives that were coming at them that they just didn't have a chance to ever really find their rhythm and get going the way that a lot of us thought that they would. And Chuba Hubbard for whatever reason didn't have the type of season that to follow up his 2,000-yard season. And I think there were a lot more factors at play in that than him just underperforming. I think that injury was significant for him. I think there was a lot going on there. So, I think they had about the type of season that they earned with the way that they performed. You look back and that Iowa State win is a lot bigger deal than maybe we even thought at the time. They go down to the wire with Texas and nearly win that one. Obviously, the defense had some struggles late when injuries started piling up for them. But overall, I think if you factor it all in, it's probably about where about where they needed to be, or maybe a little bit above.
Yeah, and I look at the Texas game, like you said, they could have won that game. I mean that was I've even talked to Yurcich since then, and he said we probably didn't deserve to win it. He kind of even said that. In fact, he said the first half offensively we were awful. Yurcich said this too. You'd be interested. He said. And he looks at football all around the country. And Scott, he said the Big 12 by far was the best defensive league in football last year in college,
wow.
Major college football, which I thought was interesting. But here's the other thing as we look ahead a little bit. Tulsa loses Zaven Collins on defense and Zach Smith on offense. Everybody else for Philip Montgomery is coming back. He got a lot of his seniors that are coming back. We all know because we saw the backup quarterbacks win games for TU. I think you look at next year, Missouri State is the opener. Okay, it's Missouri State. It's a cupcake. But then Tulsa, and Stillwater again, that'll be a competitive game. Tulsa's going to be pretty good. And then you go to Boise, new coaching staff there, but you're going to go play on the blue carpet and on the road against a team that has great tradition. Next year's non-conference along with that. That'll be an interesting schedule for the Cowboys next year.
It will because Tulsa still got some playmakers coming back, like you mentioned, and anytime you go to Boise, anything can happen in that place. So it's a trip that I'm personally looking forward to, but a little bit nerve-wracking for the Cowboys going up there and trying to compete with a team that you're not going to know a whole lot about yet at that point in the season.
I just hope we can all go and maybe not have to sit 6 feet apart and maybe not always have to wear masks and because hey, Boise's in the wide open outdoors. We should be able to breathe the clean air and not have to use a mask and all that. Plus, I don't really want to drive to Boise, so I'm hoping that air travel is a little more compatible. So, hey,
That would be
Happy
nice.
New Year! I wanted to catch up. Happy New Year, and hopefully we'll. That's the other thing. I'm looking forward to maybe interviewing guys in person again,
I
not
can't
doing
wait till
Zoom
I get a chance
calls.
to do that again. I can't wait
That would
to
be
stand in front of
nice.
somebody. Oh, it'd be great.
Yeah. So, hey, Scott, I appreciate it.
Awesome. Hey, Happy New Year to you too, Robert. Thanks for having me.
All right, Scott Wright from the Oklahoma, the beat writer for the Oklahoma State football, some of the other Oklahoma State